Thank you. I now request Mr. Ravi Veeraraghavan, past President IIA Madras, to welcome the chief guest with a bouquet. I invite Mrs. Uma Prakash, past President IIA India, to felicitate the chief guest with a bouquet. I now request Ms. Deepika, President IIA Madras Chapter, to deliver the welcome address.
A very warm welcome and a good morning to all the distinguished guests we have in the dais, esteemed speakers, sponsors, and my dear internal audit professionals. On behalf of Institute of Madras Chapter, it is my immense privilege and honor to welcome each one of you to our chapter's annual conference 2026. In today's scenario, risk is dynamic, regulations are intense, technology is redefining the control environment, ESG is reshaping governance, and stakeholders' expectations are very high. And internal audit is being called not merely to detect, but to anticipate, not to review, but to advise, not merely to report, but to influence decisions. This conference has been carefully curated around this transformation. We have coined the theme of our conference to be Internal Audit at Inflection Point. Over the next 2 days, we will explore the future of internal audit in a tech-driven world, AI, data analytics, cyber risks, board expectations, CAE leadership, and many more. Each session is designed not just to inform, but to challenge and elevate. Internal audit today sits at the intersection of strategy, risk, and governance. We are no longer reviewers of history, but we are navigators of uncertainty. Organizations we serve depend on us to identify the emerging risks before they become crises, provide clarity amidst complexity, and uphold ethics when pressure mounts, and act with independence even when it is uncomfortable. This responsibility demands competence, but more importantly, it demands courage. As we move through this conference, I invite each one of you to engage actively, ask difficult questions, network meaningfully, and challenge perspectives. This helps us to take back actionable insights to our organizations, because organizations create awareness, but professionals create impact. Let this not just be a knowledge-sharing event. Let it be the moment where we renew our professional commitment. Let us reaffirm that internal audit is not just a compliance function, but a cornerstone for governance. Thank you.
I now call upon Mr. K. Vidyadharan, Conference Chair, to speak about IIA India and give an overview of the conference today.
Respected Chief Guest, Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan, Managing Director, Sundaram Home Finance. Respected Keynote Speaker, Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda, Immediate Past President, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. IIA Madras President, Ms. Deepika, Director, CNK Associates LLP. Mr. P.R. Loganathan, my mentor and guide, doyen in the profession of internal audit, founding father of IIA Madras, presently Chief Advisor on the Board of Governors of IIA Madras. Other Board of Governors of IIA Madras, IIA India officials, other dignitaries of the dais, special invitees, eminent speakers in the various technical sessions, learned delegates, sponsors, press people and journalists, ladies and gentlemen. Very good morning to all in this pleasant Friday morning. It is my pleasant duty to give an overview of the conference in a brief manner. This is the age of AI. Everything and everywhere there is AI. In the recent past, we had AI Impact Summit in Delhi. Infosys had celebrated an AI event last week. And now, in this 2-day conference, we are also going to deal with AI in a befitting manner. Many of the technical sessions are going to deliberate on AI tools, AI use cases, auditing using AI, etc., etc. Technical sessions are happening concurrently in 3 parallel tracks. Track 1, IA Next. Track 2, Risk Horizons. Track 3, Professional Mastery. There are totally 12 technical sessions, 1 keynote, 1 special technical session, 2 panel discussions, 1 fireside chat. Our focus areas are mainly on using AI tools, audit of invisible work, supply chain audit, audit trail, continuous auditing. Apart from this, we concentrate on fraud prevention and detection, digital frauds, corporate scandals, cyber frauds, all fraud related. When we talk about frauds, I do recall an incident of a huge fraud which came to light a few days back. I am referring to rupees 590 crore fraud perpetrated by employees of IDFC First Bank, which is under detailed investigation. Why I am pointing out this fraud is because it is not an online fraud nor digital fraud, but it is committed in the traditional method of fraud. So, we auditors should be vigilant about traditional modes of frauds also. We are supposed to be control experts. We should be thoroughly conversant with internal control systems, which is very essential for all auditors. I wish to draw your attention to a book on fraud published by IIA India recently. The title of the book is Fraud Prevention and Detection Using Internal Controls. Incidentally, this book is authored by me and 2 other chartered accountants. One, Naval Kishore Bajaj of Bangalore, 2, Sana Bakai of New Delhi. This book gives in detail the internal controls in various functional areas and how frauds are committed and how they can be prevented and detected using internal controls. Some copies are available here and kept in the stall outside. This is the book for your information. Those of you who are interested can buy it. This is IIA India publication. So, this 2-day conference, I hope, will give lot of food for thought and there will be lot of take-home points. We are also having award-giving ceremony at the end of this inaugural session. A separate announcement will be made shortly. Last but not the least point, the total delegates gathered for this conference has touched 300, a record number. Top registration came from one single company, Ford Business Services, 38 delegates from one single company. Happy learning to all. Thank you. I am also given the pleasant task of saying a few words about IIA India. Institute of Internal Auditors, headquartered in Florida, USA. They have presence in more than 200 countries world over. In India, IIA India has got 6 chapters: Chennai, Mumbai, Delhi, Calcutta, Bangalore and Hyderabad, and more than 20 audit clubs all over India. And we conduct every month professional development meetings, which is free of cost. Members and non-members can attend. Our flagship certification program is CIA, all of you know, Certified Internal Auditor Examination. With these few words, I conclude my speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the overview of the conference and an insightful view of what is to follow the next 2 days. I now take the privilege to invite Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan to address the audience. Mr. Lakshminarayanan Duraiswamy is currently the Managing Director of Sundaram Home Finance Limited. He has over 30 years of experience in financial services industry with experience in risk management, operations and strategy. He was the Chief Operating Officer of Sundaram Asset Management Company till 2019, which he joined in 2009. And prior to that, he worked for GE Capital India and Australia in various risk management and business development roles across commercial finance, consumer finance, and healthcare. Mr. Lakshminarayanan is a commerce graduate, qualified cost accountant, and a Master of Business Administration from Loyola Institute of Business Administration, Chennai. He is also a member of the Managing Committee of Madras Management Association. We are delighted to have you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, all of you. Can we have the presentation? Good morning, all of you. It's an absolute privilege to be here on a Friday morning, and it's even better to see a full house here. I wasn't too sure how many people, when Ravi called a couple of weeks back, I wasn't too sure if this is a gathering of, closed gathering of IIA members, but I'm happy to see, nearly 200 people, gathered here. So when I was asked to speak at this event, I wasn't too sure what I'm going to say, because I'm in the middle of a lot of stalwarts here. And as a disclaimer, I'm not a chartered accountant, I'm not an internal auditor. I'm a user of internal auditor, so therefore that gives me some standing to speak. Just go back to the previous slide. So, and the title of this conference really intrigued me. We keep talking about, what is the role of internal audit, what does, there's only one way of internal audit that we all know, the speaker, I think Deepika, she mentioned about the traditional way of auditing versus the new age way. For all of us, there is only one way of internal audit, and that's just to make sure that there is no major fraud that happens. And in that sense, internal audit is a thankless job. Nobody remembers you when you do well. A fraud happens, the next day internal audit function get questioned. For the last few years, nobody talked about that bank that was being referred to, how good the internal audit function was. There's a 590 crore fraud that happens, internal audit function comes into question, and it's universal. It is the same everywhere. Internal audit function is, they just do their job quietly and go away. The moment some regulator picks up a point and say that there is a hole here or there is something else that happens that leads to a financial loss, we all moan about why internal audit isn't up to the mark and why internal audit isn't doing its job. I think overall, as an industry in general, I certainly can speak for the financial services business. We have always underinvested in internal audit. We've always thought it is to be the other function. After all the main functions of sales, marketing, operations, and everything else, if time permits, we will take a look at internal audit. Otherwise, look, you've appointed an internal auditor. They'll take care of things, and we don't spend a fraction of a time that we spend on business, we spend on financials that we attribute to internal audit. But then we double down and spend more than enough time when a fraud happens to find out how we can fix our internal audit. So I'll share a few of my thoughts with you. So why is it at an inflection point? We keep talking about internal audit. Is it an inflection? Is this because of AI or is it because of something else? I would say AI is just evolving. While we all like to talk about AI, we still don't know the use cases of AI. Of course, there will be enough tools that will come into play over the course of the next few months and years, depending on the speed with which these develop. But I think the inflection point is because of everything that is happening around us. If you can see, The world that we live in today is changing so rapidly that we cannot take things for granted, and we cannot have internal audit perform the same way that it performed 5 years back or 10 years back. A lot of things have changed around us in business, but has our internal audit function kept pace with those changes, and have they understood everything that's going around them to audit, more intelligently and more effectively, therefore. Also, the expectations keeps going up. As I said, internal audit function, as long as you can keep me safe, that's the job well done. But the moment something happens, internal audit function get questioned, and therefore they get crucified. I'm sure there will be a lot of debate on what went wrong, why things didn't happen, etc. the moment something happens. But there's no point in talking about internal audit or controls after a fraud has happened. That's fairly useless according to me. It's something that we need to anticipate and talk about these things. And that leads us to, what is the scope of internal audit? Is the scope of internal audit to find frauds? Is it to make sure that all the checklists are ticked and therefore we are compliant? Or is this to anticipate something that can go wrong? And to anticipate something that can go wrong, we need to make sure that the internal audit function understands the business better than the business themselves. Because for every internal audit role that we have, or the kind of work that the internal audit teams do, if the business teams decides to game the system, they will find enough loopholes that they can circumvent, because internal auditors won't understand the business as well as the business guys do. So therefore, when will this move from just a compliance function to a strategy function? If you actually draw an analogy to a risk management function, that has actually moved on. Risk management function is a fairly relatively newer function to internal audit. Internal audit has existed for years. Risk management function came into being only a few decades back, but risk management function has quickly evolved into a strategy function, and something that a lot of CEOs find time and space to discuss risk management, because boards around the corporate world also talk about risk management, but not as much for internal audit. So therefore, when do internal audit become a function that can shape the strategy of the company versus merely keeping things safe and making sure the records are intact? The recent global disruptions certainly gave us something to think about. The pandemic certainly opened up the world and things that we have not even envisaged before. So therefore, if you really look at it, do our processes have the kind of controls? Where are the weaknesses? What are some of those things that are vulnerable? The pandemic certainly exposed it, and that's then there are lots of controls that came in around that place. If you look at supply chain shocks, when the tariffs started coming in, there's obviously one set of supply, and even before that, pandemic did give us a rude shock when China suspended exports of key components. So therefore, we had shortage of laptops, we had shortage of all the key electronic items. So therefore, how do we typically, if you look at it, all these are, to me, risk management functions. When do these become a function of an internal auditor? Can internal audit play a role? Because if internal audit always takes the back seat to this, they will always remain where they are. People are not going to, they're not going to get a seat in the table for anything that is remotely close to strategy. We will all sit down, discuss strategy, and we will call internal audit team saying, this is the new product that we are introducing, please go on, audit if things are happening well. This is what the immediate past president, when he spoke, also alluded to, saying that technology is here to stay. There is no point in fighting technology. Whether it is AI tools, whether it is data analytics that we are talking about, they are here to stay. How do we make sure that our teams are skilled enough to play this game? This is just going to take the business away into another orbit, that if the rest of the functions, and including internal audit, if they don't catch up with this, it's going to be impossible to survive. Forget about doing an audit, but this is a question of survival. How can the audit team collaborate using technology? In fact, when I had the conversation with our internal audit function, this is what happened. About 8 years back, the internal audit team used to travel for about 20 days. We have about 150. We had about 120 branches 5-6 years back. They used to travel for about 20 to 25 days. And they used to take about another 20-25 days to prepare the reports, coming back into Chennai and then reporting it out. Everything that you needed to do for internal audit existed in the branches. Today, 80% of the audit of branches can happen sitting in one place. You don't need to travel. You need to travel, if you had a system of checking the labor law compliances in that branch, upkeep of that branch, petty cash of that branch, and there are some specific branch related local activities that if you need to audit, you need to go there. Everything else can happen from one place, and you don't need to move out of your desk. All you need is a few files that get transferred to your common drive, and then people can do audits. We need to get comfortable with doing audits like this, and risk-based audits. There is no point in doing audit of everything that we always used to do. We need to understand what are the risk spots, what are the hot spots that we need to audit, and therefore spend our time wisely and use the time to audit those risk spots rather than just audit in a chronological order. The regulators have moved to risk-based audits. The Reserve Bank of India, the National Housing Bank, SEBI, they have all moved to audits based on risk, because normal audit of all these regulators used to take 2 months or 2.5 months, after which they will send a report, the report will get discussed. One whole financial year goes in sending an audit of the previous financial year. So today, they come and say that, look, we want to audit KYC, we want to audit your credit process or legal process, etc. So that's what happens, and therefore, if the regulators themselves have found this useful to do a risk-based audit, I'm sure organizations will find it even more relevant, and therefore internal audit should find a way of doing this intelligently. This is a case study, I think, of Malta. Malta is a small island in Eastern Europe. This came up as a result of one big fraud that happened internally. The size of Malta may be irrelevant to a lot of us. It's probably half the size of Chennai, so therefore it's not even I'm not even referring to that for size. But the fact that a small island nation can actually come up with something like centralization of audits, and also putting framework for regulations, and therefore having a large governance council just to make sure that they don't repeat the mistakes that happened in the previous regime. So public sector, governments all around the world are taking a look at this. So there is something for us to learn from. Someone spoke about this, the role of internal audit to fighting corruption and fraud. I would say this is incidental. You don't go into internal audit hoping that you can find a fraud. Your internal audit is to test your internal controls and see whether your processes are strong enough to withstand any vulnerability. If there are any holes, you want to fix it. If there is a fraud that comes up as a result of your internal audit, so be it, but you would want to fix these gaps before they happen. When an internal auditor goes and audits a function, and if he sees that there are vulnerabilities, it is his or her job to make sure that how do we fix those vulnerabilities before something happens, not wait for something to happen so that we can go back and fix it. This is not a game of probabilities. This is, if there is a gap that exists, we don't just sit around and discuss what is the probability that something can happen. This is fairly binary to me. It's, if there is a, if there is a vulnerability, it's a yes or a no question, not how much is vulnerable. This is probably one of the most important things that we need to build around the organization as a control function. How do we bring a risk culture into this organization? This is probably the most difficult thing. This is not easy. This does not happen by town hall or by an email. And this certainly doesn't happen through putting posters around your office. This is, what is the message from the top? How do we make sure that we build a culture of risk around the organization so that when we have every function look at the processes, they look at it with a risk lens to see what can go wrong and therefore how can we fix what can go wrong, rather than building the processes and then worry about risks later. I like this term polycrisis. We are in an era of polycrisis. Multiple crises occur at the same time. Cyber threats, there is news every day around data leakages around us, across organizations, and this new DPDP is certainly going to make a paradigm shift to the way we handle data, the way we look at data, the way we handle data, and the way we share data across the board. Climate and ESG risks are real. It's not going to be too far that it becomes a mandatory function of both risk and audit, that someone, today the funds are being, some of the alternate funds and are being asked to get a ESG certification if you need investors outside of India, and I'm not too sure that this is going to stay that way. It's going to become a part of what the regulators are going to demand even for Indian investors. Regulatory shifts are happening. There are regulators are catching up. They are also trying to plug a lot of loopholes. So therefore, the audit function needs to be vigilant. And the fact that there are overlapping crises that happens, you jump from one to the other, but you just need to be aware of this all the time. Therefore, what does it mean to be an internal auditor? I think the first one is the most important thing, communication and influence. How can internal auditors be a part of business, communicate with business and influence the way business is done rather than the other way around? As I said, today it happens the other way, where the business influences how the audit should be done. Can we flip this around and then see if audit can influence the way business is conducted? But that requires a lot of communication and compelling storytelling by the audit function. Data analytics and technology, we spoke about this. This will become an integral part of an internal auditor's role. So therefore, data analytics or being aware of technology tools is no longer a luxury. It's a part of the mainstream role. Can they play a role as a strategic advisor to the CEO? Can they bring more to the table than just internal audit? That certainly will be tested in the coming years. So therefore, this is not about just the audit function. This is about what kind of an impact that we can create. How can we manage this change process? The change management is certainly a big thing. Embracing technology is not easy. Over the course of the next 2 days, you are going to hear a lot about technology, AI, the roles that AI will play. All of that is very nice to hear, sitting in a conference room, but when we have to go back and influence or implement all of these things, it certainly requires a lot of courage, a lot of change management, and a lot of conviction to let the CEOs or the boards know what is required. If we don't speak up or if we don't open up, we will always get told what to do. So, thank you. At this inflection point, I want to read out this quote. The internal audit is not just a function, it's a strategic force shaping resilience, transparency, and the future-ready organizations. Thank you for listening to me. Have a wonderful conference.
Thank you, sir. I hope the audience would concur with me on the key takeaways on the ever-evolving internal audit function. Compliance-driven to strategy-driven, strategic and trusted advisor, and embracing technology and data analytics. These require collaborative partnerships, upskilling, and building a risk-aware culture. Thank you once again, sir. I now request Mr. Giridhar Janardana, Secretary, IIA India, to present the chief guest a memento as a token of our appreciation. Thank you, Mr. Giridhar Janardana. We now have the keynote address by Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda, immediate past president, the ICAI. The topic that he is going to cover is internal audit at the inflection point, from controls testing to trust engineering. An ardent wordsmith and an eloquent orator with the thought process of a societal benefactor, Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda, FCA, had been elected as the 73rd president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the term 25-26. Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda, a distinguished fellow member, has been practicing chartered accountant for the last 34 years since 1991. Exhibiting outstanding academic acumen, he attained his Bachelor of Commerce degree from MLN College in 1987, consistently securing a position on the merit list at Kurukshetra University throughout his undergraduate studies. Throughout his illustrious professional career, he has been the chairman of many committees and garnered notable achievements. Under his chairmanship, the Digital Accounting and Assurance Standards Board had issued Forensic Accounting and Investigation Standards. This innovation showcased ICAI as the first accounting body in the world that issued standards in the area of forensic accounting and investigation. Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda has been passionately representing India and the profession on various international forums, striving to position India as a global accounting hub. Currently, he is a board member of South Asian Federation of Accountants. We invite you to address the gathering, sir. Thank you.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You have to start this there. Okay. It will come here also? So, Madam Deepika, the Chairman, President of IIA Madras chapter, the chief guest of the day, who gave a very scintillating presentation, bringing out the basic issues with regard to the inflection point of internal audit, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan, Mr. Vidyadharan, my very dear friend Mr. Paul Jaikar, Madam Uma, ladies and gentlemen. It's a proud privilege and an honor to address such an enlightened gathering on internal audit. I want to tell you that internal audit is my first love. I came to the Council of the ICA way back in 2004, and the then President, Mr. Sunil Goyal, who hails from Jaipur, made me the founder chairman of Internal Audit Standard Boards. I was close to 7 to 8 times the chairman of Internal Audit Standard Boards before I became the vice president and then the president of ICI. And now I'm chairing the committee AI in ICI. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's topic is very contemporary. Internal audit at the inflection point, from control testing to trust engineering. The most important thing which I want to tell you is that every time since a child when I started doing my CA, I learned two things. The first thing, there is an expectation gap by the services which we offer and the services which is taken by the corporates or clients or stakeholders or regulators or government. And second important thing, they always say that we are at crossroads. Times are changing. Everything has to change. But today at this time, I'm pretty sure that things are changing in such a big pace that you feel FOMO, fear of missing out. If you don't stay in the system, after some time you start feeling that things are not up to the stance where you intend them to be. Coming to technology, on which my previous chief guest spoke very elaborately. Technology is something that has changed our life. 12th February 2024, we set up a committee, AI and IIA, which I am chairing now. Till now, we have more than 35,000 chartered accountants who are AI certified. And when I go for guest lectures or inaugural lectures, I see people at the age of 75 also sitting and trying to learn artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence truly has been blown out of proportion. I was speaking at the IIA summit in Bharat Mandapa, which was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. IIA will bring us at a perspective where we have the entire information at our hand, which is very important, very crucial. But the most important thing which you need to understand is that what do you do with data? There were times when gold ruled everything. Even today, gold and silver is creating a lot of havoc on the bourses internationally. But it is not supreme. There were times when oil, land made a difference. But today, the entire difference is on data. But the irony of the fate is that you have data, but you can't do anything. I'm reminded of a great speaker on stock market who said that if you have a budget copy 2 days before the budget, you can never predict how the markets will move in tandem with the budget announcements. Same thing is with data. Data will give so many things as an internal auditor. I have to assimilate, I have to analyze the data and go to the audit committee or the board as the case may be, so that they can take their call on the risk appetite, they can take their call on how the functioning or control environment has to be. What has to be their thought on risk framework, these are their thought process. But how I analyze data is very important. And when it comes to data, artificial intelligence is not the sole savior. Blockchains, which has been neglected over some time because the glamorous propositions which AI got is something which is unprecedented. Our blockchains are again a very important facet of internal audit. Moving ahead, Internet of Things, data analytics, cyber security audits, information security audits. You use so much things by technology. How do you know the input which you get is correct? Why do you know information system audits? In the last council meeting which I attended as the president, where we discussed and transacted agenda, we made 13 information system audit standards mandatory. The reason was very simple. The data is coming from so many sources filtered through technology. But how do you define as an auditor? How do you do validation of the data that is coming to your table? Very, very important. If you don't understand that, you are not able to perform. So with this prelude, this background, what is expected of internal auditors? And I am very happy that the IIA chapter Madras has bought such a nice, when I read the topic, I was so happy. Internal audit at inflection point, from control testing to trust engineering. One of those topics which is so forward looking. So I straight away come to that topic now. The most important thing which you need to understand is that the environment has changed. Environment has changed on a larger perspective. Earlier control testing, we call more as a post-mortem. We don't want a post-mortem. We want a continuous health check, which will ultimately define how things can move ahead in the right stream. Moving forward with each and every step, why concurrent audit was started. IDFC bank fraud is spoken at a large level. Why it happened? Continuous monitoring was not there. The Chief Minister has said that entire money has gone back to IDFC bank's account along with interest, but we are yet to get the official endorsement from them. Yesterday, the share picked up and gave a feeling of resilience that they have come out, but largely, if you go on to day by day analysis, if you go on a continuous monitoring, you are able to move ahead. So when it comes to the environment has changed, the world is changing. Traditional sample-based testing is something which was in past. Today, the entire data needs to be analyzed and exception reporting has to come in. Earlier, when you used to do internal audit, huge reports were prepared. Bank concurrent audit, huge reports were prepared. Nothing of that sort. The bank says, write only 2-3 page executive summary, what you couldn't do. What you could do, what was resolved, leave it aside. We don't want that. So see, the summary-based system has come like summary assessment. And there is a couplet which says, difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. I'll come back on that at a later stage. But here I would like to tell you, there is the culture of cloud-first architecture. Everything is on cloud. You don't get documents. How you go, you create the control environment that goes to the board. It takes so much time to deliberate. Then it comes out. Then the entire resolution is done. Is outdated now. The second thing, embedded controls. Controls are embedded. Embedded in the system where you see a flash of exception. An internal auditor has to step in. See, earlier the role of, I remember when I joined my career, people used to say, go and become an internal audit. No issue, no disciplinary proceedings for chartered accountants and internal audit was the feeling. But for past 2 years, I was the Chief Justice of 2 benches, and I understand that internal auditor is equally responsible as a statutory auditor. If you go back to Satyam Saga, you will know how internal auditor was brought to book. So very importantly, the entire control process, and if there is a deviation, needs to be called upon, investigated and put into a clause. You don't go on to points time and again and resolving them. They say resolve at the bud from where it is starting. AI complexity. AI has brought certain complex things. But how you gel them with your audit program, how you gel them with your findings and stop something that is not correct. Speed mismatch. See, in today's time and earlier time, things are moving at such high speed that it is not possible. See, earlier to give solace to internal auditors, we had checklist-based internal audit. Compliance, ye bhi kar diya, ye bhi kar diya, ye bhi kar diya. You feel you have done the entire thing. Today there is no scope of internal audit. We give a scope, we get a scope. But a person is answerable for each and every process deviation. Each and every, you may say, we have been over the years doing press conferences, telling people that statutory auditor is not a bloodhound. It is not possible for him to bring out frauds, to detect frauds. Same is with internal audit. But whenever something happens, the first person who comes in scanner is the concurrent auditor of the internal auditor. Let us be very clear. So you can't shun your responsibility by saying that is not a part of the scope. The scope, how you tackle it with technology is very important. And so this speed mismatch which is disturbing us needs to be catered with and a plausible solution be taken into account. The next is limits of traditional control testing. There are so many limits of traditional control testing. The most important is rapid obsolescence. Things become obsolete. It is not possible for you to go and define everything because the entire system and business processes are reviewed on a daily basis. Something that is required is embedded. So how do you define on that? The second is sampling blind spots. Earlier, whichever area question was raised, we used to say it is not a part of our sample. So we came with a guidance that every sample which you take, how you have taken that needs to be documented. So at a later stage when a question arises, we could go and determine that this is the sample which was there and it is not a part of our testing. But times have changed. Now the entire data needs to be analyzed. Manual inefficiency. Person can do everything. See why you need technology. 3 big reasons. Number 1, technology ensures that the monotonous work which you do is not done by you, it is done by the machine. Second, it guarantees arithmetical success. And third, very important thing, computers don't have wives. The work is delivered on time. Very, very important. So very importantly, when it comes to manual inefficiency, the working is impaired, and therefore you need the new system of trustworthiness, of trust compliance, trust verification, trust validation. Symptom focus. You have to focus on a particular draw. What are the areas? You find out this is the area where you need to focus. And I remember when you go to audit committee, they say, Mr. Nanda, now you have to focus on technology issues. Now you have to focus on the interest parts. Now you have to focus on how processes are deviated. Now this is not there. On an ongoing basis, on everyday basis, you have to take and monitor all these things and report. And not only report, whatever you see is wrong has to be embedded in the system so it does not reoccur. Speed mismatch. Working on a manual basis, working on a control environment, compared to trust environment is totally different. Limited visibility. The visibility is very limited when you do on a control basis, you determine and sample. Here it is a huge overview which you take. Reactive rather than predictive. You have to be reactive. You have to bring out what things are and immediately solve them. Erosion of stakeholders' confidence. The stakeholder confidence is also eroding. So, the evolution of trust engineering starts. What are the three bases of trust engineering? Number one, prevention over detection. Earlier, you used to happy to detect, used to say, I detected this much big things, this much big fraud. We want to prevent. We don't want to go into that painful process of detecting and then taking it to book and saying that it is duly punished. We don't want that. We want to prevent. Second thing, automation as standard. What Mr. Lakshmi Narayan said, he totally focused that without automation, yes, I don't say all of us need to be AI compliant, but a year from now, you'll be designated as a person who does not understand AI. So you automatically go out of the system. If you don't understand technology, that also on an ongoing ground, your professional experience, your degrees will render no benefit. Third, measurable outcomes. Whatever you are doing, how you are creating, and how you are envisaging that thing. I'm reminded here of Walt Disney. When Walt Disney set up Disneyland, he had died 13 years back. The inauguration was done at Anaheim, US. When it was done, his nephew Ray was taking care of that. A reporter said, had Walt Disney been alive today, he would have seen this. Before the entire crowd, Ray rebuked the reporter. He said, Walt Disney saw this 13 years back. Therefore, it is in perspective today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is something which we need today for our initiatives. Evidence, please understand now. Evidence from screenshot to signals. Earlier, we used to see screenshot point in times. Today, the evidence is cloud audit tags, trials, audit trials. When it comes to technology, there is no depth of evidence. It remains there. Email confirmations and manual sign-up have gone now. And SIEM, security information and event management, telemetry schemes have come in to give proper information of deviations of exception reporting. Sample base manually collected. Today, it is infrastructure as code state. Static, easily manipulated, incomplete information is now changed by pipeline attestations. So what is the continuous evidence pipeline? We have system logs. We have cloud configurations. The governance starts from defining ownership, data integrity controls and oversight mechanisms to ensure reliability and accountability. Every person at every stage can now be nailed. From wherever it passes, it is clearly documented, it is clearly evident. You go to processing, automated ingestion, validation, analysis of control data stream in real time. The buzzword is real time. Output, dynamic dashboards. Today everything is on my mobile. We did a very big flagship program of ICI, World Forum of Accountants 2.0, where more than 11,500 people participated. Every even night when I used to get up at 2 o'clock, I could see how many people were there, how many have registered, what is the system, what are the system. Everything was on a dashboard that gives me information whenever I need. what good looks like. What is better? Today, 80% faster time to assurance, we compress to hours or days. 65% fewer repeat findings. We don't want repeat findings. 100% population coverage. Bringing evidences which could change things. We have continuous evidence available. We have preventive controls which dominate over the entire system. We have dynamic signal-driven support and scope. How you don't write a scope, you don't pen down the scope, you look where you need. The system advises here, your involvement or indulgence is needed. What a great area. So internal auditor now has to become indispensable. Organizations earlier used to take it only as a management function. Today it becomes an indispensable function for the healthy running of the organization. Quantifiable trust metrics. You know what metrics will define how you have to move ahead. End-to-end visibility across ecosystems. Every ecosystem can be viewed. Any process deviation, any exception can always be outlined. And faster redemption and feedback loops. Very important. Redemption is done immediately. The new audit object system of trust, identity and assess trust, very important as an internal auditor. Change and release test, whatever is requested, what is required comes out and puts you in the right perspective. Data trust, very important. Information system audit, cyber security audits to validate the data. And third party trust, monitor vendor security posture, integration points. Data flows are very important. Trust control framework. I want to very clearly say the basic objective is creating an unbroken chain from policy to proof. Please don't take photographs. I'll send you the entire to madam. And I've sent them already. That can be shared with them. No issues, madam. I have only 2 minutes, so I would like to rush up. What internal audit does and what it doesn't do. It does validate control designs for effectiveness. It defines assurance requirements and test criteria. It creates query and analyze system-generated evidence and reports on trust outcomes to leadership. What it doesn't do is very important. First of all, build or configure production systems. So when you don't build systems, how do you create the fallacies which may have arisen in them? Own or operate security tooling, which is very important. The entire security system needs to report to you for your analysis. Hold accountability for operational controls. Very, very important. Entire operational control, your accountability is there. And last, make architecture or technology decisions. When you take those decisions, things move ahead. Operating model and independence. Now, when you come to IIA-based systems, when you come to technology, the first thing is you have to maintain independence. You have to partner strategically to give information that can be used by the board or the audit committee, as the case may be. You need to build IA engineering and establish framework which helps you move ahead. And the last slide of the day, capabilities internal audit needs. Number one, control observance, control observance, each and everything where you find deviation is there. Audit analysis and automation, which will ultimately put across certain functions which are redundant, you don't need to report, and focus only on analytical skills. Signal-based planning, where you need some specific need is required, you can step in. And last is engineering grade remediation. Yes, areas where your expertise is required needs to be quantified and put into the right perspective. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm thankful to you all for giving me patient hearing. It's always great to come and speak before I have gone to your international conference number of times. The level of indulgence and the way you look, listen and understand things is totally phenomenal and adorable. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. A new perspective indeed, looking at data as the next gold and silver. But then again, how we analyze data and making it useful and valuable is no less important. And how to embed technology in audit programs is to be deliberated by each of us. And the key takeaway again on trust engineering is prevention over detection, automation, and measurable outcomes. Thanks a lot, sir. I now invite Ms. Gayatri, Secretary IIA Madras, to present Mr. Charanjot Singh Nanda with a memento as a token of our appreciation. Thank you. We now have a special felicitations plan to honor achievers, both young and fierce, who are driven to achieve more, and old, with a treasure trove of experience and for laying the path ahead for youngsters to follow. The IIA Madras chapter is honored to present the Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. P.R. Loganathan, founder member of IIA Madras chapter. Request Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan and Mr. Charan Jot Singh Nanda to honor Mr. P.R. Loganathan. IIA Madras chapter is honored to felicitate Ms. Sai Varalakshmi for being selected as one of the 15 emerging leaders for 2025 by IIA in 2025. Request Ms. Deepika, President IIA Madras, to do the honors. Ms. Sai Varalakshmi is the Assistant General Manager, Internal Audit Department at Star Health and Allied Insurance Company Limited. Her professional qualifications include Chartered Accountancy, Certified Internal Auditor, and a licentiate from the Insurance Institute of India. She has received global recognition and selected as one of IIA's 15 global emerging leaders for 2025. Her certifications include ISO 22301 on Business Continuity Management, ISO 27001 on Information Security Management, and ISO 9001 on Quality Management. We are indeed proud of you, Ms. Sai Varalakshmi. IIA Madras chapter is delighted to felicitate Ms. Anupama on winning the World Championship in snooker. A proud moment indeed for the mother, Ms. Gayatri, who is also the Secretary, IIA Madras. I request Mr. Vidyadharan to kindly do the honors.